OpenAI just dropped Agentic Commerce Protocol, or ACP. In short, it lets ChatGPT shop on your behalf. You tell it what you want, your preferences, your budget, your favorite brands, and it does the rest for you. It's basically a new interface to e-commerce, a completely different way for consumers to shop online. I think it can have far-reaching consequences, and I was pretty curious to understand how it works. So in this video, we'll take a look. Let's dive right in. So what problem are we trying to solve exactly? What the agent or the LLM needs to know and needs to do to accomplish this task? First of all, it needs to have a clear view of the available products. So it needs to have some listing, some feed of products that has been indexed, and you need to have appropriate information such as a description of the product, its dimensions, the fulfillment policy, all these, then the shipping options, all the things that a user needs to know. You also need to have some secure mechanism to get these products from the merchant, but also a way to make payments securely. So we do not want to broadcast our payment card information to the whole world, and we don't want to risk a malicious merchant taking our credit card information by tricking the LLM. So there's the payment dimension to it. And we also need to keep track of what's happening. So if we make a purchase, we need to be updated of what's going on, because we're not gonna enter an email with the merchant. ChatGPT is gonna do everything. So we need to have status updates, basically. So let's get to it. How does it actually work? The user formulates an intent to buy something. I want to buy this item with that color. That's my budget. So the agent, ChatGPT, is gonna perform a search in its catalog of products, and because the uploaded products have multiple fields and information, so it can filter the exact products that might suit the user's needs. Then it presents them to the user in a nice UI or in text, and there can be some back and forth when we're trying to refine and zero in on which product we want to purchase. And once the user decides to buy a product, the agent is going to start a checkout session with the merchant. And that's basically, there's basically an endpoint exposed by the merchant that allows the agent to start a checkout session. And then once the checkout session is started, the merchant is gonna respond with some useful information. What are the current shipping methods? What are some additional purchase options? And these are gonna be presented to the user. So do you prefer for it to be shipped this way or that other way? Do you prefer this option or that other option? Maybe there is a coupon, there's a discount. So the user updates their checkout session. And this is basically what happens when you go to buy a product and then you look at your cart. You can be offered some options and you can choose something, and it's going to update your cart. Once the checkout session is completed and all the options have been picked, the agent ChatGPT is going to interact with the payment service provider, with Stripe. So both the agent and the merchant have an established relationship with the payment service provider. And what the agent is going to do, it's going to, if it doesn't have the user's payment method, it's going to ask, ChatGPT is going to ask you to input your payment method, but it probably has it because you already subscribed to ChatGPT and paid for it. So it's going to probably use the card on file. And then the agent is going to send a request to the payment service provider to exchange that payment information for a token. That token is limited in scope. So it only works for the current checkout session with the current merchant, and there is even an amount limit. So that token only can be redeemed for up to the value of the current card. And so the agent is going to get that token from the PSP, from the payment service provider, from Stripe, and then it's going to complete the checkout session with the merchant and send that token. Then the merchant is gonna redeem that token with the payment service provider. So notice how the user's card information is never sent to the merchant, because there are multiple merchants, potentially some malicious or compromised ones, whereas the relationship with the payment service provider has more trust to it. And so if the merchant is successfully able to redeem the token, then it's going to confirm the transaction, and the the operation is completed, then the agent ChatGPT exposes an endpoint. So it's listening on some endpoint for order updates. So the merchant, whenever the order is confirmed, whenever it's packaged or shipped or whatever, these updates are sent to that webhook endpoint. And so in this scenario, the user only asks ChatGPT to perform a purchase. It's done it without the user having to input their credit card information because it's already there. And the credit card information has been exchanged for a token with limited scope. So even if that one is compromised or the merchant is malicious, it's not going to have a big blast radius. And that's pretty much it, which is pretty nifty, to be honest. And if we look at examples, so first of all, the merchants, before being able to have their products listed in ChatGPT, they need to provide a product feed. And OpenAI asks merchants to basically have this information accessible to ChatGPT through HTTP, and they provide a schema for the product, so you can have your product searchable. You can either opt in for checkout through ChatGPT or redirect the users to your website. You can have information you have information about the product's details, description, all that. And one interesting feature is having some review information and some questions and answers asked about the product, much like in an Amazon product page. So if you, the user, have a question about the product, you can just ask it, and ChatGPT has this data already available in its database, and it can answer you. And if not, the product fields have some extra links, such as return policy or terms and services and all that, and it can go read these and answer your questions, which is pretty cool. So products are sent through this feed by respecting this schema, and then the agent can start a checkout session using this endpoint checkout sessions, and by specifying a certain product and the quantity and then the user's fulfillment address. That's all the merchant has to know. And then the merchant answers with some information and then some extra stuff, such as the tax information, the fulfillment options, the shipping, all that. And once the user is going to update the current checkout session, ask ChatGPT to do it on their behalf. And once that's done, the agent is going to interact with the payment service provider to generate a delegate token. So the token that represents our payment card, but it has limited scope, and we can see it here in this allowance field. So it's a one-time token. It has a max amount. It's limited to a specific checkout session, the current one, and to a specific merchant, and it expires after a period of time. So even if this token is compromised, the user is still safer anyway. So once that's done, the checkout session is completed, and we have the webhook endpoint where the merchant can send updates to the agent. That's pretty much it. So honestly, this is very cool, and I'm pretty curious to see how it turns out in practice and how people actually use it, and is it really going to be a consequential change in shoppers' behavior? We'll see. One thing that comes to mind is that in this setup, both the agent and the merchant place their trust in the PSP, in the payment service provider. So the agent sends the payment information to the PSP and gets a token, and the merchant accepts that token and redeems it with the PSP. Basically, the PSP is the central point of trust. One can think of a different solution where there is no third party and where the trust is decentralized. So basically, the agent and the merchant can run some sort of smart contract. Who knows, maybe you'll see a similar setup in the future. Anyway, I hope this has been informative. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.